Hello, welcome to One to the Force of Star Wars podcast. My name is Phill, of course, and you're watching Star Wars. Today we're talking about Darth Maul, son of Dathomir. It's a 4-issue canon comic book miniseries written by Jeremy Barlow with artwork by penciler Juan Vega, inker Mario Vargas, colorist Wes Dizoba, and cover artist Chris Scalf. The miniseries was published by Dark Horse Comics beginning of May 21st, 2014, and concluded with the fourth and final issue on August 20th in 2014, with a trade paperback being released in October of that year. Following Disney's purchase of Marvel, there's a subsequent re-release under the Marvel banner for Son of Dathomir. It is an adaptation of unproduced scripts from Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which would have been part of the show's 6th season had the series not been cancelled in 2013. Although the 13 episodes from the 6th season were released as the Lost Missions, the episodes that Son of Dathomir were based on were not completed and therefore not released as actual episodes. So therefore the story is part of the Clone Wars legacy line that includes the Dark Disciple book and the two animatics, which were Bad Batch and Crystal Crisis and Utapau. And of course Bad Batch has been subsequently re-released as part of the show's 7th season. The series is set during the Clone Wars, a continuation of Darth Maul's story from the show. The rogue Sith Lord, who was revealed to have survived the events of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, in the episode Witches on the Mist, has been captured by his former master Darth Sidious, following the events of the episode The Lawless. And we're going to now go into the comic book itself and talk about the events of that series. The episodes, I think, would have been a fantastic addition to the series, and it's one of the things that, when you go back and look at it, Son of Dathomir is a great series, so we'll talk about that as we go along. But Darth Maul's storyline was abruptly ended in Season 6 by him being captured, and it picks up in Series 7. Spoiler alert to those of you who haven't seen Season 7 yet, but of course it picks up with him being back on Mandalore. And this is that story with how he gets from that encounter to being back on Mandalore. The comic book opens up on Stygian, in a secret prison that's known only to a few people, with Darth Sidious torturing Darth Maul, finding out what exactly he wants. So there's a purpose for everything in the galaxy and a way to destroy it. And Sidious is going, I see you remembered your lessons. He wants to kind of find out what Maul's about at this point. He's been disappointed. At this point, don't forget that Maul and Savage Opress attacked Darth Sidious and were defeated. At this particular point, you have Dooku coming in, and of course Maul's very upset because he knows that that's the place that he should be in, which is beside Sidious's side. Again, they really are talking at this particular point about what's going on in the Clone Wars themselves. We're talking about there are many forces poised against us to ensure a complete and total victory. We must root out and destroy all of our enemies. And of course, Dooku's only speak of other enemies than the Jedi, which he's of course referencing his mother Talzin and the Night Sisters. Now, of course, if you go back to the Clone Wars, the series, Darth Sidious had sent Count Dooku to invade Dathomir, the homeworld of the Night Sisters, and wipe them out. It was General Grievous just went absolutely nuts in that place, and it's a massacre. It's one of the darkest parts of the Clone Wars. If you watch the series, that's one of those episodes where it is just a total massacre. But it's one of my favourite story arcs, as well as seeing that dark side of the Clone Wars, that edge that really is not grey. It's just black and white of just eradication. And of course, the history with the Dathomir witches for Darth Sidious goes back even further than Count Dooku knows, as Maul came to him as a child, a not-so-appreciated gift from Mother Talzin, and her spite for Sidious runs deep, as he says. And of course, at this particular point, what he doesn't realise, or may not sense, is that Gar Saxon and Cast are entering the prison to try and break free Maul. Commander Saxon is being contacted by President Almec, and Almec, of course, you'll find out again if you watch the Clone Wars, spoiler alert, Almec is still controlling both Mandalore as its president, but also being a puppet for Maul as well. And he ends up breaking Maul out of prison. So you can see, unfortunately, Cast and Saxon rushing through here, and they manage to again break him out, get onto a gauntlet fighter, and get away. At this particular point, though, you then cut to Grievous and his fleet, saying more ships have been tracked to the planet Zanbar, and he's been directed there by Count Dooku to go and take Maul out. He's really not supposed to know exactly what's going on, of course, Count Dooku, but all he knows is that at this particular point he needs to destroy Maul, but he knows he's going to be weaken him but not kill him. This is the problem when it comes to Grievous. Grievous, of course, likes to take out everything in his path. So when we get to Zanbar, Maul is arriving at a secret Shadow Collective base. And of course the Shadow Collective is Maul's syndicate, it's a crime syndicate, which includes the Pikes and Black Sun, includes Crimson Dawn and other bits and pieces that you do get referenced later on in the Clone Wars when it comes back in Season 7. Again, really need to watch that if you haven't seen it. This is a prequel to that, I have to admit. So Prime Minister Almec, I have to thank you for securing his release, as Maul saying, talking to him from the base on Zanbar. And it's of course him saying, we recovered the Darksaber as well. Now the Darksaber, of course, entitles you to rule Mandalore. And of course, it's very interesting the fact that Almec gives him the Darksaber back. He really is that puppet. Because here's him, Black Sun, the Pikes still follow you, Lord Maul will do as you wish, what is your command? He really is in control here. And of course, as he does that, he realises, unfortunately, it's too late, the Separatists are incoming, and Maul just unleashed the might of the Shadow Collective upon them. At this particular point, you just have one of the first of the few battles in this series. Again, something I really wish they would have animated. It would have been so cool. But you had the first confrontation between Grievous, Maul, and the Magna Guards, and you have Maul just taking out Magna Guards left, right, and centre. But also you have Grievous, who just takes out one of the Mandalorians. Again, in a rather vivid panel. One of my favourite panels from this particular arc, I have to admit. It's one of those things you really don't see in the Clone Wars. It be this visceral, and I think that's something that, yes, okay, it was a cartoon aimed at a younger audience, but if they had shown some of the violence, this would have been even better. And of course, you have Maul at this particular point finally engaged General Grievous. But before he knows it, Grievous's army gets bombed into oblivion by the Gauntlet fighters. And that's the end of that's how the first issue ends, is the Gauntlet fighters coming in and ending and blowing up as many of Grievous's forces as they can. Maul is then taken aboard his own Gauntlet fighter and taken away from the battle himself. And as at this particular point, he's retreating towards Dathomir. And what I really love about this panel here is not only Maul's Gauntlet fighter, but you have the Black Sun, Gazanti freighters, other bits and pieces as well, that Black Sun logo. It's just really cool little details that you don't necessarily get time to notice in a TV show, but you can pick up in the comic books here. And the Fang fighters and the Gauntlet fighters are really cool things that I play in X-Wing Miniatures game, and I do play Darth Maul when it comes to a crew slot on Boba Fett. So it's one of those things that I really want to paint up a couple of my ships in that vein. But anyway, I'm digressing from the point here. It's a really cool panel that I just had to stop and talk about there. We get on, and this time you now finally see Mother Talzin. Of course, Mother Talzin was destroyed from the physical realm in the massacre on Dathomir. So, of course, you see her spirit here, and that's how she's interacting with Maul, because she needs a vessel to come back to. At this point, she's giving him guidance. He knows what he needs to do, and he even asks, what is your guidance? What do you want me to do? So he says, Sidious will expect you to retreat to my protection. You will not do this. Lead your fleet to Ord Mantell. Sorry, that was it. I forgot to say. They're en route to Ord Mantell, not to Dathomir. Your allies Black Sun have a stronghold there. So at this particular point, they do end up going to Ord Mantell. They may not realise it, and you'll see later on they have been tracked. At this particular point, you actually have the Pike Syndicate and Black Sun awaiting them with the Farlene and the Pikes there. And you also see Gar Saxon and Cast in the background here. So meanwhile, as I said, here we go. The spies report that the Mandalorian warships are massing on Ord Mantell, which only confirms the Black Sun is in league with Maul's Syndicate. And that's where he, of course, is going to gather his army. And this particular point is just get everything there. And yeah, again, it's just a massacre. It's what he wants. He wants to be able to land there and destroy everything and take Maul so that he can draw out Mother Talzin for Darth Sidious. At this particular point, you cut back to the war room for the Mandalorians here, of them planning their defense of Ord Mantell. And it's too late by this particular point as well. They know that they need additional help, and you have Saxon come and say, Lord Maul, we have incoming transport from Dathomir. And it turns out that he's actually brought in a bunch of his fellow Knight brothers from Dathomir. So Mother Talzin has been sent them to aid with Brother Vicious here. Mother has chosen well. He says the droids are here, it's too late already. At this particular point, you do cut to them bombarding the city. There are a few, but I will have a caveat. There are a few panels I missed out here and there. In this particular instance, I'm trying to get through this in a slightly faster line than I got through my read-through of Kylo Ren. At this particular point, you do see, of course, the city of Ord Mantell being bombed to hell and back, and it's too late. It's not enough time to bring them up to speed in the plan. So Maul just says, take your Night Brothers to the command center and wait for his word, and everyone else, you know what to do. And Saxon rallies the troops and starts the defense. At this point, you have Grievous land his troops on the surface and start to engage in what is going to be, very obviously a massacre, just a wave after wave of his own men tactic to wear down the Mandalorian strength. At this particular point on the other side of it, though, you then have Darth Tyrannus, Count Dooku, arriving with the Magna Guard to try and root out Maul. At this particular point, Grievous is kind of taken by surprise. He thinks that everything is absolutely fine, but kind of has an inkling that he doesn't see where the warships are, but at this point it's too late. Maul has taken the Gauntlet fighters and his fleets to the other side of the moon and come back and try and take out Grievous's fleet. We then get back to the surface battle itself, and you find that Dooku has entered into the command center where he's faced by Brother Vicious and the Night Brothers. At this particular point, Dooku is just flat out threatening them, going, you try it, you will suffer. And the ground battle is not going anywhere near to Maul's plans either. And Gal Saxon is just saying, rein it in, soldier, don't question the strategies here. And at this particular point, you have a different kind of battle droid here, one I've not seen in the Clone Wars before or since, punching through the wall, and he's just taken them out. At this particular point, you cut up to the top battle. They know that down below the battle's not going well, but Maul's able to land on Grievous's command ship and board it. So we're going to take the fight right to General Grievous. Maul, at this particular point, knows that this is the plan, this is how he's going to succeed. Brother Vicious, on the other hand, is having a much tougher time against Count Dooku, who is just lighting up everyone with Force Lightning and trying to take out Count Dooku. I think he really does overestimate his own abilities, underestimate Count Dooku for sure. Maul, at this point, just ends up flattening Grievous against the glass in the command center the command deck of his flagship, and he's just going ham, just goes, look, either you will do what I ask, or you'll die, or do both. Doesn't matter. It's just brutality. Again, it's one of those things I wish they had kept in the Clone Wars as well, as that extra level of darkness. Of course, Grievous is the coward as always and turns off the droids, and therefore the Mandalorians end up walking in and taking Dooku. We then cut back to Maul aboard Grievous's command ship, and of course Mother Towers at this particular point, tells him to go to Dathomir, come to her, she has a plan. And that's the end of issue number 2. And at this particular point, you're wondering what's going on with the rest of the war at this particular point. And the first issue of the opening of the third issue actually handles this really well by being set in the Chancellor's office on Coruscant, where you have Chancellor Palpatine talking to Mace Windu via a hologram, Mace Windu's on a hologram, talking to him about his discovery that it is in fact Darth Maul who's in league with General Grievous here, to which is very much a big surprise to Master Windu, who of course is at this particular point with General Kenobi and Master Tipley on Ord Mantell, because they're kind of mopping up Grievous's mess, trying to find out what the hell's been going on there. At this particular point, you actually have Aayla Secura coming holding a Mandalorian helmet as well, and this confirms the intel from Mandalore Resistance that the alliance between the Prime Minister Almec and the Underworld is still intact, of course, especially being the Shadow Syndicate. At this particular point, you then actually cut to Chancellor Palpatine, Darth Sidious talking to Darth Maul via hologram, talking to Grievous and Count Dooku, of course, were the captains. Just at this particular point, just kill them. All he wants is them going. He goes, I don't care. I have no use for them. Maul's trying to get that rise out of him, saying, you remember Mother Townsend. She was your ally. We used her as you used me before, throwing us both away, as you will these two. And Sidious has absolutely no use, and of course, at this particular point, Maul's just more than happily just to take them out. Sidious even threatens them by saying, treading lightning more, revenge is a dangerous game, you never seem to win. And of course, at this particular point, Maul is just pissed. and he just shuts down the hologram. They end up going at this particular point back to General Kenobi and Master Tipley, talking about the last time he saw Maul. Because the last time I saw Maul didn't go very well for Obi-Wan because he lost touch of Satine. And he does say to Master Tipley, "My emotions are under control. I will not fail you or this mission." He is very determined not to let his feelings get in the way, something that Anakin, of course, does time and time again. If Maul is in hiding there, we will drag him out. Meanwhile, Maul is talking to Count Dooku, saying, "I left you here to make an offer. While Grievous is a limited creature of scope, you see much more. You abandoned the Jedi when you understood the Sith were gaining power, and now I suggest you abandon Sidious and serve me." Something that Count Dooku really just doesn't think is going to work in his favour. When Mother Talzin and I last met, she tries to destroy me, and Maul reveals that things have changed when he releases Mother Talzin to be able to talk to Dooku. He even tells him that Maul is her son, so tells him the truth, and he ends up kind of trying to sway his favour here to see what can be done, because she knows that she needs help fighting against Sidious, because Sidious is a very powerful being indeed. And of course, at this point, cut back to Cody talking to Kenobi, saying, we have actually found them. They are on a military base hidden on the asteroids. Are you certain? Saying that with Maul, nothing is ever as it appears, Cody. Whilst they still have the element of surprise, they're going to try and move forward, but what they don't realise is they have lost the element of surprise. At this particular point, Count Dooku actually releases General Grievous from his holding cell using the Force, and you even have Grievous at this point just break out, going, "Perhaps not as useless after all, Count." You see him just smashing helmets as he goes along. And again, this is the thing with the comics; they can be a little bit more visceral, whereas the actual cartoon cannot be. So he's going to try and make his escape, whilst Kenobi tries to make his attack, and it's one that is going to be somewhat cool, as you will find out in a minute, but also kind of sad as well. So as soon as they land, Kenobi says, "I sense Maul's presence. Let's lock this place down until our reinforcements arrive." Which, of course, Master Tipley says, "My pleasure." And you have Grievous again at this particular point. He's working his way out. He finds an escape pod and does escape. But again, I'm going to talk about the top panel here, where he says, "And tell him to send much more men," is because he's talking about the Mandalorians here, but it's just this, again, brutality that you don't actually see in the comics. You've got blood on the claws and the face as he's wiping out a Mandalorian as he's going through to find his escape pod to get out, and it is very kind of, it's brutal, but it's brutal in a way that you don't expect. But I've come to love from the comics that you do get this added visceral element to the storyline, and it's something that I wish again we'd seen. So at this particular point, Maul just goes, "Look, allies or death." Count Dooku weighs his options and goes, "Right, let's go kill some Jedi together." Maul just gives him back his lightsaber and goes, "Wise decision." At this particular point, he knows that Dooku's kind of in his pocket, or at least that's what Dooku's making him think. At this particular point, you have Kenobi and Tipley saying they need to fight our way to the command center, or the command deck, to be able to find Maul and find out what's going on. At this particular point, you have Maul and Dooku just walk and go, "Okay, better let us come to you." And you have a standoff between the four of them facing off, Kenobi versus Maul, as it always is, and Dooku versus Tipley. At this particular point, there are more gunships arriving, including Ace Sakura and Mace Windu. And Maul at this particular point is not happy, but Dooku just goes ham, ends up blasting Tipley and Kenobi with Force Lightning, as Maul is going after Windu and Ace Sakura. And as the Mandalorians come to attack, you have Dooku pull Master Tipley towards him and just slaughter her. Now, Tipley and Tiplar were introduced in the first episode of Season 6, The Unknown, and of course in that particular episode, Tarp ends up killing Tiplar. So in the space of one season, you're going to be introduced and sadly see the death of Tipley and Tiplar. But again, this rather visceral death you have here from Dooku is just violent, and does end up leading to Dooku and Maul's escape, as it provides such a big distraction as the Mandalorians then blow up what's in front of them, allows them to get to their ship and get off world. At this particular point, you have Mace Windu get up and go, "What just happened?" He is concussed. Everything's going on, and all you see is a shadow as well of Obi-Wan holding Master Tipley's body. And it's a very sad scene. It's one that, again, if it had been in the Clone Wars itself, would have been horrible to see, but also something that would have been very cool. And it cuts to the chance at this particular point, going, "It pains me to hear of the tragedy of the loss of Master Tipley." And it appears Count Dooku and Darth Maul are allies now, which could solve the long mystery of the Master and the Apprentice, whereas Dooku is the Master and Maul could be the Apprentice. The really cool reflection you see at the end of this panel is Sidious just absolutely brooding. That reflection is just pure evil, and you know where it goes to, you know where it leads to, which then leads us nicely into the last issue here, issue number 4. And it's really kind of cool. So it opens up with Maul talking to his syndicate, going, trying to calm them down, basically, saying, "Black Sun, the Pikes joined your promise of greater, collective and the greater promise of profit, but it's becoming a personal crusade." And Maul, of course, is just shutting them down left, right, and centre. Goes, just if you want to be paid, then that's fine. That's what you want. In the meantime, return to your respective sectors and prepare for our next phase. Once Darth Sidious is dead, the galaxy will be ours for the taking, and he knows what he wants, and he knows how he's going to try and get it. So at this particular point, they're on their way to Dathomir, and they end up taking Dooku along with them for a very specific reason. He doesn't know what's going to happen here, but we do end up finding that Maul has the intention of using Dooku as a vessel, and you see as soon as he places his hand here on the totem in front of him and says, "Reveal yourself," then she comes out and goes, "My son is right, Count. It's time to eliminate everything that gives Sidious power, beginning with you," as she starts to try and take over his body. At this particular point, you have the Sith infiltrator arrive with Darth Sidious on board and General Grievous trying to cloak their appearance of the ship as well, and try and sneak their way on Dathomir, so by the time they get there it's too late for Maul to do anything about it. At this particular point you have Dooku being possessed by Mother Talzin. She's saying he needs the body to be able to come back to the physical plane, and it's really kind of cool to see this possession take place. I mean, I loved seeing in the Clone Wars Mother Talzin and the smoke effects and things, so that to see would have been really cool in the show. And at this point you have Grievous arrive with Sidious, and you know that this is it. This is the final showdown between Grievous, Sidious, Dooku, Maul, and Talzin. And it's really cool what happens here. So Castor ends up at this particular point talking to the Pikes and Black Sun on board Maul's gauntlet, and saying you should deal with him directly. And they're just pissed. They are just pissed off because he knows that they both know that they're under attack. They both know that their time is coming to an end, and they want protection. Black Sun has more than enough resources to protect itself, argues the Pikes, and the Pikes want their protection, whereas Black Sun are arguing they should have the protection instead. Either way, they are trying to split up Maul's resources among them, and it's just not working. Cuts back to the beginning of this fight. You have Maul saying, "At last the great deceiver comes to rescue his pawn," and Sidious goes, "I come to end this fast once and for all." He knows that it's going to be brutal. He says, "Mother Talzin lives, and your apprentice is under her full control." And you have this again really cool panel here going, "Sidious, you'll pay for your betrayal," of Count Dooku with veins popping out of his head, lights dancing out of his eyes, green energy, saber ignited, and it's just one of those panels. Again, I wish it had been in the show, but this panel itself does make up for that in some aspects. And you have Maul and Grievous with Sidious and Dooku now just about to go at it, and you actually have Dooku and Sidious cross sabers here in this really cool panel. But as he says, you control Dooku's body because there's none of his skill, and he's just going to release my apprentice, you haggard witch, and just blasts him with lightning. And ends up blasting with so much lightning whilst Grievous and Maul are fighting that ends up releasing Mother Talzin. However, though, she says, "I am whole and returned," and Sidious wants to know, "You're about to die. This is it. This is the end for you." You then have cut back finally to Cass talking with Black Sun and the Pikes, going, if they survive the day, you're done. With both the Pikes and the Black Sun saying, "Okay, whatever happens, the relationship here is over. The Shadow Syndicate basically is going to be no more." And at this point, they actually pick up a Separatist invasion fleet arriving, and it goes, they know it's too late. Cut back to this fight, to the end here, and it's just Maul versus Grievous. He ends up force pushing him out, saying, "Good riddance, metal trash." And you actually have Mother Talzin using one of Sidious's lines here, going, "How long have I waited for this?" With that, "Long have I awaited." That kind of, she knows what's coming. They both know what's coming. She ends up trying to blast Sidious with lightning. He goes, "Yes, your rush to oblivion has nearly reached its end." He countered with his own force lightning, and it's just this really big wall of energy that now appears. But Dooku has survived. He ends up getting up, of course, using his own force line to add to the effect. And you have Darth Maul saying, "Fight, mother, fight." He wants to win. He wants Sidious gone. He knows this as much as anyone, that if Sidious survives, he is no more. Then at this point, you would then have Cast and Saxon coming back and trying to get Lord Maul, because he goes, "Lord Maul, Dathomir's must. We must retreat." With Talzin saying, "Go, my son." She says, Maul says, "We can escape together." He goes, "Not this time. I'll learn my defences. You will die." She blasts him back, and you have Maul being carried up the ramp of the gauntlet by Saxon and Cast as Grievous ends up walking through this wall of energy. This is the Grievous we wanted to see in the Clone Wars. This just enigmatic image of death and destruction as he just goes, "It's time to die." Maul is just in agony as he just watches her get eviscerated in front of him. Once again, images I wish had been made into the cartoon that were too violent for it. My God, do they look cool once they're finished. And you have just Mother Talzin just eradicate here and just turn to dust. As Maul's being dragged away, he goes. He now knows that is it. He's off to Mandalore, which is where you then see him in Season 7. And you have Sidious here talking to Grievous, saying, and Dooku going, "It's that which never learned. There are those of power, those dream powers, and hers existence was nothing but a dream." Dooku just kind of gets on his knees and goes, "My lord, forgive me. Maul has once again slipped through my glass." And to end it all, you have no Count Dooku. Everything has happened for a reason as foreseen. This was a difficult piece to manoeuvre, but now it's in place. Maul's future has been erased, while ours is more certain than it has ever been. And you know exactly what's coming here. You know how the Clone Wars is going to end from here on out. You know the events that transpire in the rest of the Skywalker saga. And that is the end of the comic itself. Now, my thoughts on this particular series, I love it. Son of Dathomir was something I picked up in 2017, 2018, I want to say. I think I picked up after it was re-released by Disney under the Marvel banner. And it's one of those things that does actually irk me slightly. As a Dark Horse comic, it's the only Dark Horse comic that is canon. The rest of the Dark Horse line is under the Legacy banner and can be re-released by them, but this is the only one that is canon. It was taken by Disney, released through Marvel. There's probably a license through there they've done for that, because of course, this particular point, the Clone Wars was finished on Season 6. This fits in with those unfinished stories, what would have been the end of Season 6, before Season 7, and of course they actually had episodes written for 7, 8, and 9, I think they had another couple of seasons at least, so I think it was Season 8 by the time they were supposed to be done. But of course, we now know what we've got, and we're happy with what we've got. And of course, at the moment, this arc is ending, and this is the prequel to that arc. So if you haven't seen the Clone Wars for Season 7, I urge you to go and watch it. I do urge you to go and pick this comic up. I've missed out a fair chunk of panels here to try and get through this in a quicker time than I got through the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. And also just to provide you the main highlights. This is just over 20-odd minutes, maybe about half an hour by the time it's all said and done, where of course these were 4 20-minute episodes that were going to be put together. I really like this. It does actually help tie up what happened between Maul's capture and where he ends up in Season 7, how he also then goes onwards for his arc towards Rebels, and of course his ultimate end versus Kenobi again. And this provides the final piece of the puzzle. So for those of you who haven't read it, I do urge you to go and buy it, and it does fit in nicely with everything else. It also helps provide some more information of how the armies were progressing, how the war was progressing for both the Republic and for the Separatists, as it finally comes to this loggerhead conclusion. And again, it's one of those comics that really does help define the Clone Wars as that series that really we compare every other animated series that Star Wars has done since too, because it would just set the bar so high. And this is one of those arcs I really wish they had done it. I really wish some of those scenes had made it, but what you get in a trade-off is the scenes being, as I said, more visceral, more raw. The artwork in it is just incredible, and it's one that I really urge any of you out there who haven't picked up to go and pick it up and add to your collection, because it is canon. This is canon. It's the only Dark Horse comic that is canon, but it's canon for the Clone Wars, and it's a very important arc because it allows you, as I said, to tie up that loose end of Maul between his fight with Savage Opress against Chancellor Palpatine, and where he ends up by end of Series 7, and where he ends up going forwards for Rebels. So it's a very cool kind of thing. And of course, in Solo as well, with his Syndicate, with Crimson Dawn, there are so many pieces that you can now start to put together. And it's one of those pieces I recommend you pick up. Not sure what I'm going to look at next time, but all I know is thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Once the Force, the Star Wars Podcast, at the Force Podcast. You can find the video for this later on our YouTube page, as well as the audio version on our Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, and iTunes. Until next time, we've been Ones of the Force. When the Force is with you, good night.